Today on the Camp Owners Podcast, we talk to the creators of Save Next Summer, an amazing movement and organization that's encouraging people all across North America to engage local officials to provide guidance for summer camp operation in 2021. It's going to be a great show. Stay tuned.
Welcome to the Camp Owners Podcast, a space for camp owners to talk about the unique aspects of camp ownership and get inspired by each other. We are going to sit down with camp industry experts, leaders, and fellow camp owners to hear how the camp dream transpired for them, learn from each other, and discuss some of the biggest issues in the private camp industry. I'm Kelly Schuner. I'm co-owner and director of Hidden Pines Ranch Day Camp in Stillwater, Minnesota.
Hi, and I'm Howie Grossinger, and I'm the co-owner of Camp Robin Hood, a day camp in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. If you're looking to find and subscribe to the Camp Owners Podcast, you can either find us online at gocamp.pro/COP or by searching for us in your favorite podcast app. Finally, if you're listening to this and think it would be useful for other camp owners or aspiring camp owners in your circle, please feel free to send them a note to listen. We love our new listeners every show. We couldn't do this without the generous sponsorship of Camp Brain, and we want to give them a big shout out and thank them right now. Camp Brain is camp management software that serves over 1,300 camps. They've been doing it since 1994 with 45 plus dedicated staff to meet your every need. As you know, if you're a consistent listener, I'm a big fan of Camp Brain. I've been part of the ecosystem of Camp Brain right from the beginning and love everything they do. I encourage you to check them out. One of the best parts of the Camp Brain experiences is the relationship you build with their team. Instant trust, they understand what you're going through, and no question is too small. They are there to serve, help you, and make your camp operation everything it can be. So I definitely encourage you to check out Camp Brain. If you're considering some new camp management software, you can check them out at campbrain.com or call them at 485-8885. Kelly, I am so excited about today's topic and introducing the world to our guests, our little podcast world here. Today's show, we're really excited to welcome the creators of Save Next Summer, a camp advocacy movement spearheaded by our guests. Many states and provinces have still not been provided guidance for their camps to open in 2021. And our guests have created a resource for campers, parents, and camp professionals to have their voices heard by their local governments and get some action going. We need to have all camps operating in 2021. We are excited to have the guys join Kelly and I and learn more about their work and what they're doing and how private camps specifically and professionals in the private camping industries can support their effort. I got it all out, Kelly. There you go.
You did. Good work, Howie. You missed the memo, though, on wearing glasses. I wore my all business legislative Let's Go to Capitol Hill glasses today.
There we go.
Business. Oh, done.
I've
Perfect.
joined the party.
We need to look the part. This is serious business. Super. Well, I'm really excited to introduce our guests for today's show. We have Mike Stillson from Valley Trails Summer Camp in Southern California and Andy Moeschberger. Gosh, Andy, I always should practice these prior. A good podcaster would do, but I'm just a volunteer here. So I hope I said that right. From Gold Arrow Camp in the Sierra National Forest, Gold Arrow.
Yes.
Right? Gold Arrow. Yes.
No
Thank
end.
you.
Yep.
Good. I don't want to add the end. Gold Arrow Camp in Sierra National Forest in California. So Mike and Andy, Soy. Sure. Can you please share with us, maybe Mike first, and then Soy, about how the camp dream transpired for you, and then maybe what your position is or what your role is at your camp?
Oh my goodness. Well, for me, it started off as a camper. Started going to camp when I was 4 years old, and I have not missed a summer since. So went to college with the aspirations of being an attorney and realized that was not for me, and changed everything in a heartbeat. And I've done everything from being a camp counselor to the head lifeguard to the head toilet plunger, you name it. And I've been running Valley Trails now for the past 22 years. I have not missed a summer camp since I was 4 years old. 33 years now in the in the industry. So loving it, and just very involved in every aspect of camp, from the American Camp Association to now being the president of Wake. Just love it. Great community, great purpose, and can't imagine doing anything else.
Well, it's very fitting, the work you're going to do, or the work you're doing with this. If you were going to be an attorney, it's like you get to wear both hats.
Oh yeah.
Then for this. Awesome. Okay, Stoy, do you want to go ahead?
Sure. Really quick, I had no idea you wanted to be an attorney, Mike. And Gold Arrow was actually founded by a guy who got his law degree, worked one day in the office, and came home and said, I can't do that. I have to go back to camp. So maybe a little camp connection. I grew up going to church camp and Boy Scout camp, and went to college to become a high school teacher. And my wife went to college to become an elementary school teacher so she could work at camp in the summer. I specifically became an educator so I wouldn't have to work in the summer. When we got married, I was very clear I wasn't going to go work at camp with her. I wanted the summer away from kids. That lasted 2 summers. The third summer of our marriage, she said, no, listen, come. They have like a maintenance spot, and you can come and work. You won't have to deal with kids at all. You can just like punch toilets and move luggage. It'll be great. You'll love it. And that was 15 years ago. And now I'm directing a resident camp and couldn't imagine myself doing anything else, because it's a world that just sucks you in. Like there's no place quite as positive and as welcoming as summer camp. And so as much as I said I wanted a break, it turns out the last thing I wanted was a break. And so here I am full time now.
Well, welcome, guys. We're really excited to have you. And I think this aspect of our show, every episode, Kelly, I enjoy so much. Just everyone's origin story. I'm a big Marvel fan, so origin stories are a big part of what I like. That's a shout out to my youngest son, who's like the geek of the Marvel shows. But I think that for me, hearing sort of this this journey in camping by all of our guests really gives everyone listening a flavor for how the influences of camp can come from all over the place. It doesn't necessarily have to be the great example of Mike, who's a 4-year-old and has never left, and influences of spouse and college friends, etc. And I think it's a really great feature of our show. I just wanted to mention that. Mike, maybe you could just take an additional moment as we start to throw around acronyms about camp organizations, and we have an audience that spans hopefully all across North America. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about Wake and your involvement in Wake, because it may be an organization that not a lot of our listeners are as familiar with.
Absolutely. Well, Wake is the Western Association of Independent Camps. It's an organization, as I just mentioned, for independent programs. We do have nonprofits, for-profits, everything that you can imagine, and it's really about creating professionalism in our industry. We are a group where we have our conferences and our regular meetings, but we also really believe in sharing. The fact is that there's more than enough kids out there to fill all of our camps. So the fact is that we want to make sure that the camps that are in Wake are operating at the best level imaginable. In the past, as the acronym says, Western, we used to be from Colorado West, but then we kind of realized that everyone is kind of west of everyone. So recently, Wake has expanded, and we have guest affiliates up in the Minnesota area. We have camps now coming from Virginia and Philadelphia, New Jersey. And as long as you are accredited by the American Camp Association, you are eligible to become a member of Wake. You just have to meet the different criteria and really be about excellence and sharing and involvement, and looking to become one of the best.
That's great. I've been using the phrase with a lot of colleagues up here, as we've probably, and I'm sure with all of you too, locally, the amount of collaboration given the circumstance has been incredible. And I've been using the phrase, colleagues and competitors, and they're very intertwined, and we can coexist as working for every camper we can get. But at the end of the day, we're better when we're collaborating and really appreciating the fact that at the end of the day, we're colleagues, and when we all succeed, it's the best for the industry. So thank you for mentioning that. I thought we would start with either one of you telling us about this great initiative called Save Next Summer, and give you an opportunity to tell our listeners a little bit about the motivation, sort of how it all started, and where you've come to, and we'd love to hear more.
Sure. So as I mentioned earlier, I used to be a high school teacher, and what I taught was government. And so I have a background in teaching young people about how government works. And one of my favorite things when I was doing that was a project where kids had to identify a problem and then write a letter to an elected official, right? And send that letter. And then you could get some extra credit if they managed to write back. So the trick was to write a very persuasive letter and get the representative to respond. So with that as background, Mike and I were in a WAKE meeting, a resident camp work group, and we were talking about the reality is for most of our member camps, the resident camps didn't have guidelines. And we've been writing letters and connecting with camp parents in government. For example, the director of public health in California is a camp parent. His kids go to a WAKE camp. So we had very productive meetings with him around camp guidelines. But in the spring, he had basically said, listen, we don't think we know enough to do this safely. We're not going to be able to do resident camp. The state had day camp guidelines. So resident camps were talking in this meeting about what else can we do? We've written letters. We've talked to very important people. They know how important this is. And yet here we are 10 months into a pandemic. And as far as resident camp in California goes, no further along for guidelines. And as you guys obviously know, like the season starts now. We're hiring staff, we're enrolling people. And if you're doing it without guidelines, you're doing it on faith that you're going to get some guidelines and hope that the guidelines are going to be something that you can then adapt into.
Let me interject real fast on that, though.
Please do.
Resident camps aren't even listed as one of the industries for the reopening of California. So how can we even hope for guidelines if we're not even an industry that's recognized? So that was an even bigger problem.
It was. And as we were talking in this group, John Swanick from Astro Camp, Virginia, and they are a member of WAKE. He sent me a message in the chat that said, hey, check this out. This is what we've got going on in Virginia. And an ad hoc group of camps in Virginia calling themselves the Virginia Overnight Camp Coalition, which was formed at the beginning of the pandemic, had put together a campaign called Save Next Summer. And the idea was advocating now for the summer of 2021. As soon as I saw the name of it and what they were doing, like all of the light bulbs that are attached to the light fixture in my head went on at once. And I thought, this is perfect. Like, yes, we should have our camp communities advocate for us. We've done the advocation. We've said to state governments, local governments, we need guidelines. It felt like in a lot of ways, our advocacy was being heard the same way that hairdressers and bars and other small business advocates were being heard, which was from a business point of view. And we realized, Mike and I, in the chat during this meeting, realized very rapidly, our customers are not the same as customers of other small businesses. And maybe I'm wrong, but I've never thought to myself, my barber changed my life. But we know that campers know, and camp parents know, that camp changes lives for the better. And so what we decided to do was to build a resource for campers and parents to share those stories with state and local officials to help those officials understand the important and really unique role of camp in society. And so that's what we did. We built a website. There's a section for it. It's for grownups is what we call it. So adults who care about camp, maybe they're camp parents, maybe they're guardians, maybe they're camp staff alumni. There's a section for campers because we would love for them to advocate. They're our best friends when it comes to explaining what camp is really about. And there's a section for camp professionals. And each section has an easy link for you to find your legislators. It has a template letter that you can copy, and there are chunks where it says, hey, change this to be about your story. And it has a quick request to join our social media campaign around Save Next Summer. And then for states and provinces that have more specific asks, that have more kind of detailed they need. For example, what we're asking for in California is different from what you guys are asking for in Ontario. It's going to be different from what you're asking for in Minnesota. And so once we understand the differences on the state level, there are also state pages that are more specific. And the idea really, and then I can be done because I feel like I've talked for an hour already, is that camps by and large are not legislative experts. By and large, camp owners and directors are not super plugged into civics and civic engagement, but I was. And so I can share that expertise and make it so that camps can simply point their families at this website, and the website does all of the work. So what you're doing is you are saying, hey, this is what I need, and here's the expert that will help you do it. So camps trust you, right? They've sent you their most precious things. They've trusted you with their children. If you say, hey, can you write a letter for me? They're going to say yes. And now we have a place where the tools are all there for them ready to go.
And then also to kind of give a little more background and expand on it, Andy's not just a former civics teacher and a camp director. He sits on the board with me for the California Collaboration for Youth. So he's actually the legislative liaison for us. And this is what we do on a regular basis as well. So we work on legislative issues, and we've been doing this for quite a while together. And one of the other important things to realize is that we're not asking for the green light to open our camps right now.
Super important.
Looking at the conditions that we're in right now, it would be, number one, irresponsible, but it would also be impossible to open up camp right now based off of the COVID numbers. We're asking for the guidance, because if we don't have guidance, how can we plan? How can we figure out how many staff we need? How many beds do you have? And be able to say to the parents, yes, we're going to open the summer, but really have no way of knowing what the summer is going to look like. So we're not asking for that green light. That's the most important things we're saying right now is we're not saying we want to open tomorrow. But the problem is that every day that we wait for guidance as a camp professional, it's like a week. You know, we need that guidance. We need that guidance months ago. But if we don't get it soon, it's going to make it really, really challenging, number one, for our camps to thrive, let alone survive. And that's the goal. Is we want camps to be able to survive, because we see that in the current conditions right now, the industry is not going to look the same in the future if we don't figure this out. And we need to come together. Once again, one of the things you mentioned is we need to work together. The fact is we are a community, and this is where the best time for us to come together. And we've built this community of spokespeople. We know that our best marketers are not us as camp professionals. They're our parents. Our parents will go out and they will spread the word. Our campers will tell their friends about the experience they had in camp. So why don't we let them be the ones that reach out to our government officials and say, I need camp. This is where I feel safe. This is where my anxiety levels from the school year go down. This is where I have those special relationships. And then the other thing we want to do is not just send out those letters, but send a photo. You know, if you send a photo with you and your campmates or you and your camp counselors, that's going to get looked at when it goes across someone's desk, rather than just a form email or form letter that everyone's sending to the members of the legislature. So we know that our kids and our families, they really have the ability to communicate in ways that we as camp owners and operators really can't.
One of my favorite things about this is I like that the two of you spearheading this together, Soy from residential world and Mike from day camp, where I think it can happen where we can definitely be in very separate lanes sometime, but I love the idea that both parts of the camp world are working together. So especially Mike, are you coming from a place of, okay, we could run. So can I be the part of this movement that says we did it when how we felt was safely, here's how we did it, so that you can help impact some of that guidance for residential camps?
Absolutely. The fact is that, you know, this summer we followed the guidance. We followed the guidance from the American Camp Association, CDC, but most importantly, EH&E, which is the field guide that was produced by the American Camp Association. I know in the bottom of my heart that any quality camp that follows the guidance, that really takes it to heart, that does the right planning, they will be successful. The fact is that we live in a world of COVID. You can't hide from COVID. COVID's going to be out there. But it's how do you manage it? How do you deal with it? And how do you plan for it to ensure your success? And, it takes time. It takes effort. So let us know what camps need to do on the resident side so that they can take those steps to be able to be open. Because right now, the kids need it. The kids need camp more than ever. And I think that we can do it safely.
Exactly. And I think for me, and I'm curious to hear some of your strategy behind maybe this issue that may arise. Wake has a relationship with sort of local government, state government, et cetera, and you've made particular efforts to gain access so you can be at the table. Can you share with us some of your thinking around the balance between the efforts as an organization to engage legislators and then them feeling you're unleashing parents and kids on them, and maybe sort of the degree to which that will either assist or hinder the effort and the timelines of that? Because I know, as an association up here in Canada, the Ontario Camps Association, we've been, and also as the Canadian Camping Association, there have been a lot of talks around, we're making some inroads and they're listening and they're engaging, and now they're getting 1,000 letters and they told us we're on it, it's okay. So I just thought it would be maybe an appropriate thing to explore about some of those issues you've either had to wrestle with, and how how you've wrapped your head around that very delicate place and sort of upsetting them, if you know what I'm saying.
No, I think this is a really important point. I think for us in California specifically, we have decided with the California Collaboration for Youth that we want a two-prong approach. So in most states, and I think probably most Canadian provinces, at the end of the day, the decision will be made by public health officials. And what we've said very clearly is we don't want any parent or camper communication with health professionals. They've got enough on their plate with a global pandemic. The last thing they need is a bunch of 10-year-olds writing them letters. Also, in most places, they aren't elected. And so from a logistical point of view, the purpose of that is they shouldn't be swayed by public opinion. They should be swayed by public health. So the professional organization has made those inroads with public health and has in a lot of states been at the table. I know that's been the case in Colorado and Washington, Virginia, certainly some Eastern states. They've been at the table. But we also feel like no matter what, camps are going to need some help and they're going to need recognition. And that's where unleashing our parents, so to speak, on legislators, we think is valuable, because that then the legislators might put a little pressure on public health. If I'm honest, I think most legislators have already put pressure on public health from some small business sector or another. I don't think that's uncommon. I think most people are writing to them. I think for me, where we have shifted a little, especially in talking with the Virginia Coalition, which has had some success in this, is looking at maybe some financial help for camps. And that's where legislators are going to be a big deal, because the legislatures are going to make the decisions about how we distribute funds. And so, again, we're not asking parents and campers to advocate for opening. We're asking for them to say to their elected officials, I love camp. It seems like camp is a long way away. It's not, and they're telling me they need help. And so hopefully that two-pronged approach where kind of behind the scenes, the professional organizations are, supplying CDC data and supplying data that the public officials, health officials are saying, hey, I need this data before I can make a decision. And then on the public facing side of things, camp communities really speaking up for camp, because in most places, camp has been something which is just, it exists. and everybody understands it exists, and nobody thinks about it as being vital, or in the current situation, nobody thinks about it being in danger, right? Because as we all know, most people outside of camping don't think about camp until like March at the earliest. Like spring break is when I then think about summer. And so, but you can't plan a business to operate in June if you don't start until March. You need to go now. And so the hope is that by giving parents and campers templates that are basically just, hey, I need you to think about camp because camp is important to me, that's enough that then we're at least in the front half of people's brains when they're making decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, we're talking in sort of our geographical area, and I'm sure we can all agree, like the best holiday gift our an elected official could give us would be to say to the public, we are working on opening and providing guidance for camp. We can't have 2 years like this. Something like that would sort of just be the best gift that the parents, kids, and all of us who operate camps could have. So I know we're working very hard to try to create an environment where an elected official could feel so comfortable they could do that. I mean, right now in our neck of the woods, the only things that are officially closed are residential camps and strip clubs. Like those are the only things like that are not allowed to even talk about opening yet. Like, I mean, we're registering kids, but it's so weird. So anyhow, I do like that approach because I think it sort of, frames it in a way where this is where we need your help. This is and the manner in which you can assist, getting your child to camp. I think that's wonderful. That's great. Kelly, I thought we would maybe explore a little bit about with the guys around sort of, what's the response been like? Give us a sense of the scope of the involvement across North America. Give us an idea of, how camps have become engaged with you. We would love to hear this because I'm sure there's some listeners out here who are going to either get on board, check out the website, which we hope they do. So give us a sense of what the last several months have been like about either onboarding or the response that you've experienced.
Well, it actually hasn't been months. It's been about 3.5 weeks. So
okay, there you go.
So when you have a committee of 2, you can move a lot faster. So, we started off with, the typical wake states, and that was about 5 states. And all of a sudden we're up to 17 states and a Canadian province. So we're excited about having that Canadian province on there. And the fact is that we want to know how can we help other camps, other geographical areas. So if your state is not listed on Save Next Summer, there's a place on the website to contact us. Tell us what the needs are in your local area. And we've got it all set up. Well, Andy does. Andy's the genius behind the page. And he's got it ready to go. So he can just plug and play and we can add you on there. We've seen quite a bit of traction. And I'll let Andy kind of talk about the number of visitors and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think we have 17 states and 1 Canadian province on the page right now. I'm currently emailing with 3 other states. And there are some states that this isn't a useful tool for. We know that Maine and North Carolina had really good guidelines. They worked very proactively with their state governments the last time around. And so there's not a need for this page for them. Similarly, we have Wyoming on the page, and it basically, the message there is send Wyoming legislators a note that says, thanks for doing the right thing last summer. Because Wyoming had great guidelines. Camps operated super successfully there. And we thought it was important in part because Wyoming is a state where we have several wake camps. And so it was natural to build that page. But also, it feels like public officials have been like just getting hit by a 2x4 every day for 10 months. And like a letter that says to them, hey, we appreciate that you did this might go a long way, especially as camp as an industry is in hard times. As far as kind of reach and impact, when you look at the analytics, the numbers are pretty good. We have visitors from across North America. We have some small traction in Western Europe, a little bit of action in Australia. But the big thing for me is that people spend a long time on the page. The average visitor spends almost 4.5 minutes on the page, which, as anybody who looks at website analytics will tell you, is a bit of an eternity. And so that indicates to us that people aren't just like checking it and being like, oh, this is no good. They're looking at a page, they're copying a template, and they're doing the work on their own. And so we're really excited. The feedback from camp professionals has been universally positive. A couple of people are a little nervous about how we talked about, like, hey, I don't want to put pressure on people if we're making good traction. And our response to that has always been like, good, don't. I think the people in the states and provinces know best what's working. And we just wanted a tool for places where they were saying, hey, it isn't working, where we could kind of open things up and really try and make a change.
And part of the reason why we created this page is, once again, Andy keeps going back to, it's a tool. What we really were hoping for is the areas and the geographic areas that need this, the camps are going to say to their families, we need your help. And it's going to be that personal ask that's going to create that action, that drive to the site. So just by us throwing out a website or putting something on a Facebook page isn't really going to do it. So if your state needs help, if your camp needs help, that's what we're saying. Send out a personal letter and asking those families to participate. Or better yet, create a silly, wacky video like Andy has in his overalls, where you're able to go ahead and really get to those families and encourage them to be a part of it. Because once again, we know that when we really do that personal ask, we're gonna have a lot more success.
I don't know what you're talking about, Mike. Camp people tend to be very serious, very little silliness and that kind of thing. No, but I think the point is well made. We made a 3-minute YouTube video that we're going to use to ask parents. And it basically is very open and honest about saying, listen, we think we can do this safely. We need the state to tell us what the rules are. We're not asking to open. And being very transparent about that with families, because I think you do your families and yourself a great disservice if you simply kind of stick to the line of, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. Parents trust quality camps because quality camps are honest with them. And this is a hard situation, right? Because I know that with our left hand, I am enrolling campers and taking deposits. And my right hand is about to publish a video that says, oh, by the way, I don't have the guidelines I need. That's like, there's a level of vulnerability there. And there's a level of honesty. And our calculation when we discussed this as a camp was, we've been honest about every other thing ever. We've never not told parents what was going on. Parents have repeatedly told us in the pandemic, we appreciated how transparent you were about your decision-making process. Why would we change that now? And so we've decided to be transparent and open and to ask very directly, and we're hopeful that it'll get a big response.
And on a day camp side, the fact is that resident camps have done nothing but promote day camp and support us when we've had needs. So that's why I feel it's important as a day camp operator that we're trying to get the guidance out there for our resident camp friends. It's not a matter of if, but it's a matter of when we need to support one another. And this is definitely one of those times.
Well, and it's so, beneficial to those of us in the day camp space, like Kelly and myself, who were given the option to operate, chose not to. And we feel like, just 2-3 months ago, like we've got a runway to plan and to consider and to send the kind of messaging we need to our families. And obviously in the overnight camp world, we just don't have the benefit of guidance, So for those that ran, like Mike, he's got a wonderful story to share with the community about how it probably was the most satisfying, summer he's ever had in many ways. And for those of us who look forward to operating, we can communicate in a very tangible way about the things we plan on doing. Overnight camps just can't at this point. So I agree, Soy, your example of the left hand and the right hand, it's such a daily reality, that we're all dealing with. And as you know, fielding calls every day about, should I register? Should I wait? You know, what, and it's affecting our planning in a world where I think there's confidence it'll happen, but boy, oh boy, the longer the runway to know exactly what we're dealing with, the better. So, I think it's a great analogy. Kelly, your thoughts?
I was just going to say, I think, so I hope that people listening to this, if they can copyright that from you, is a huge, it's so real. It's and it's visual, and it is very much like, yes, we're going to run. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we know we can do this, but I still need to know how to do it. So that is so very real. And like you said, vulnerable. And I hope that's a huge takeaway from anyone listening, that is a great way to put it into words.
And I think, you know, it's because I've been dealing with it. We had so many parents, and I think a lot of resident camps did, who expressed their trust by rolling over whatever they had paid. Like, our numbers of rollovers were far above what we thought they would be. And now we're at a point where we're saying to them, hey, here's our 2021 sessions. It was one thing to lend me the money for 1 year. But if you have to do it again, like, and these aren't easy times for anybody. It's not like every economic sector is booming except camp. Everybody's in this boat. Families trusted us so much. And now, you know, I was in a conversation with mom the other day. I was like, you trusted us. And I hate to say this, but I need you to trust me for a little bit longer. But that's the reality we're in. And that's why it's so important that we get some guidelines early. And it's, at some point, it's not just for camp professionals, it's for camp families. Like, Howie was talking about, the best holiday gift you could give me is guidance for camp. And I think that's true for camp families as well. Because as soon as I can tell them 100% I know what I'm doing, bang, 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 like, people are going to register like you wouldn't believe, because they're just waiting. They just need to know. And everybody has COVID fatigue, and no parent wants to have to decide, is what this individual camp deciding to do safe enough? If the CDC and the state says it's safe enough, we've seen people are willing to go back. Like, I have a haircut. I went back when they said it was safe to get your haircut. When the state says, hey, if they're doing these things, we think it's safe enough, people, that takes that burden of having to decide as an individual off of the parent, and they can just, I trust the camp. I trust the state enough. I'm going to send my kids.
And once again, we can't keep waiting for the guidance, because we can't allow what happened for me to happen to you. We opened camp on June 15th. I got the guidance on June 12th.
Right.
We cut it a little bit short. So once again, we were promising. We know what we're doing. Fortunately, we made the plans that went along with the guidance that we were hoping that we were going to get. But it's a much different environment, resident camp versus day camp. Day camp, we can pivot a lot faster and make a few more changes like that.
And some of this is educating public officials, right? Because it comes back to that. They don't know. Famously in Colorado, there was a call for resident camps the second week of June. And the public health director or his representative was saying, here's what you're going to do. Here's how it's going to run. He's 40 minutes into the call when a camp owner speaks up and says, you understand there's nobody on this call that's running this summer, right? Like, we've all canceled already. Right. And the guy's like, but I have the guys, you don't open for another, 10 days. And they're like, I can't ramp up in 10 days. But officials, like, we live in this world. We know that's the reality. They don't. And so it's our job and our community's job to let them know we need it now.
Well, exactly. And I think that, the amount of education we've had to do over 10 months about our industry to the public, legislators, all elected officials, incredible, because sometimes they think, well, we're giving you the guidance. So, Mike could open in 3 days because he's been doing this and he knows how he has to get his site prepared and planned accordingly. The level of healthy appreciation for really what it takes to operate, we do day or overnight, is just lost on so many people who are making these decisions that I think, if anything, we'll look back and, I mean, the benefit of all of this is that perhaps in the future we will have an earlier seat at the table for these discussions once we hopefully get to operate and get back to whatever normal looks like. That when they're thinking of things, they think about our respective organizations, the camp industry, and how it applies. Because as we're in this such unique space of, we're not exactly the tourism and hospitality business, but we are childcare, but we're not specifically, licensed daycares, and I'm speaking from a day camp perspective, and where do we really fit? And the more we can carve out a better understanding of, yes, this is, we understand that this regulation applies to all of these things, but it really hurts us. And how can we do that? So hopefully there'll be something there. I just would like to also add, which we haven't talked about, is this incredible creation of social action within the camping industry, right? With so many important, amazing things that young people are getting involved in today related to anti-Black racism, inclusion, diversity, and just the equal treatment of everybody in our society the way it should be. It's really nice to provide our camp families and campers an opportunity to lend their voice to something that's important to them, in addition to other things that are important to them as well. So, congratulations for you guys to finding a way to get that 10-year-old to think about, what can I do? And here are the steps you can do to sort of get something I love, back in play. So I just wanted to congratulate you, obviously with your background, particularly soy, it must be very gratifying that you're seeing some traction around, young people doing this.
It's lovely because kids hated writing letters in my government class. So it's great to see them excited to do it.
Yeah.
The other thing is, this is
go ahead, Mike.
this is a living, breathing machine. So the fact is that this is right now is COVID based. But the fact is that we know down the road, there's gonna be other things that we're gonna need help with.
Yeah.
It's gonna be other, laws, regulations, taxes, who knows what it's going to be that's going to get in the way of operating summer or providing programs and experiences. So we're gearing this so we can also adapt or change it 2 years, 5 years down the road to whatever we need, because as you keep mentioning with soy, we want that activism. We want to give people the opportunity and the tools and the resources to be able to make it work for whatever's needed.
Well, I think that the iron is hot. So you need to strike, because I think for us, it feels like it's the time. But, my husband and I were talking about after this, we hope that businesses that regarding people, the value will never be as high. So when you're telling us, all of us, to stay apart, these businesses that drive connection and drive relationships and drive less than 6 feet apart, I think in the eyes of our society that there will never be a time when we value that more than right now when we've had it taken away. So I think for camp timeline, our little 9 months out, 7 months out, the time is right. But I also think you're striking why those feelings and that need for connection is so raw and real for everybody.
And there's no better place for our respective communities to heal from all of this than being in our settings, right? This is really, we can talk about grit and resilience and all this stuff, but camp will be the place, for our staff, our campers, and I know even in our parents too, to heal from, the intensity and the stress of the last several months. So camp should serve as that place. And those are some of the messages that we're trying to send to local officials, just the healing part about that. We get very wrapped up in, and rightly so. Obviously, the economy has to get back and we have to follow the science. And there's so much current good news in the future around vaccines and rapid tests. We know that, just give us a chance. We're your people. Let us do this. And I know we're chomping at the bit. So I think that, for those reasons, Save Next Summer provides, all of us a great vehicle to engagement and hopefully the kind of the timely results we need to do what we do best. So it's really, really amazing. It's that time, guys. We get to a point in our episodes where, after such great conversation and hopefully a few gems for all of our listeners to take away, we get a chance to just share some things that have been inspiring us, things that have been influencing us over the last little while. So as our listeners know, we end each show off with something. Each of us on the show today share something that's inspiring us right now. It could be a book, an article, a podcast, another podcast after you're done listening to ours, of course, a documentary, etc. That really serves as a way of helping us become better camp professionals, better people. And So I thought we would start with Mike. Is there something that, is on your mind to share?
Once again, it's the power of camp. It's the magic that we provide. And, it was a really hard summer for me this year, being one of the few camps that was able to actually run. Usually we're all posting on Facebook or social media, staff training, people are arriving, this is kicking off, and I was all alone this year. And just the support of the community and the people that were, behind me and, giving me that push to keep going was huge. And then when I flipped it and I got 16 pages of comments from parents about not only did we save the summer for their kids, but that we literally saved their kids. And that I printed that out and I gave it to every single counselor, and there wasn't a dry eye there. And just knowing that for the community that we served, that there really is a purpose, that we are really doing it the right way for the right reasons, and the difference that we make is huge. And just hoping that we're going to give every camp that opportunity this upcoming summer. That's my drive. That's my goal at this time. And I want to see every camp full. I want to see every camp safe. And I want to see every child go to camp.
Thank you for that, Mike. Soy, what do you have for us?
Wow. Well, I'm going to simply copy paste whatever Mike said. I've been putting together some success stories for Save Next Summer. And one of the things we asked camp owners that operated successfully was to share testimonials. And he thinks he didn't have a dry eye on his staff. I don't even know his camp or his campers. And reading the testimonials made me cry. It might be, listen, there's some other emotional stuff when you don't run for a summer, but that was really lovely. Also, I've been listening to Brene Brown's podcast, which everyone should listen to when they're done with this one. She has Dolly Parton on the week that we're recording this, and Dolly is amazing. And one of the things that she said that really struck me, and I don't remember if it was Brene or Dolly, but basically she was raised in a way where she was taught to not look away from somebody who's in pain. And I really thought that really struck me, because I think in the current situation, in a pandemic, now it's winter and things are darker and it's harder. The natural inclination is to look away and to pull into oneself. And I think we all need to be doing the hard work of making sure we're looking at people who are struggling and seeing what we can do to help. So there you go.
Thanks so much. Kelly, what's on your mind?
All right. Well, I'm going to break my streak of books, Howie. And when I was driving home the other morning, listening to Minnesota Public Radio, because, I'm 40 now and that's what we do. No, I'm 41. I'm 41. Let's be clear about this. I'm embracing it. But they were talking about looking back on this time period in our lives. And the guest had said, I think your grandchildren will ask you, what did you do during that time to help others? And that really struck me. And I've been thinking about this time of so much connection with my family and those things. But I thought, okay, how will I answer that? How will I answer what did I do to help others? And for me, I thought about Mike and Soy. This is what you're doing to help others. Very selfless. But to me, it really gave me a good pause to think about, what will I say? What do I want to say? What will I be proud to say? So that was very inspiring when I heard that.
Fantastic, Kelly. Well, I'm picking up the book mantle from you because I have a book. There you go. So Kelly and I, guys, are big fans, as many people are, of Simon Sinek, and sort of just take in everything that he provides. It's just such great stuff. I felt, getting to learn more about Save Next Summer and just an opportunity to reflect on sort of what these last months have meant. And, we're the Camp Owners Podcast. And just by its very title, when you own something and you're in business, you're driven to look at how you can benefit and how you can achieve and succeed. And typically it has to do with the bottom line and things like that, because at the end of the day, we have a passion for working with youth and doing what we do, but we run businesses. But if there was ever a period in time in my professional career, and I have a very similar journey to Mike, where this is like over 30 years in this, the example of people working together has never been on display like I have seen in the industry. And so the book that I would like to promote, if you haven't read it, please reread it. It's called Together is Better. It's Simon Sinek's book. It's a visual book. It's a short read, but it's really inspirational. And the quote on the back of the book is really, resonates with me. It says, "Working hard for something we don't care about is called stress. Working hard for something we love is called passion." And I think that we've demonstrated that. And Kelly and I just love meeting people like yourselves. The show has provided Kelly and I personally with an opportunity to expand our network and coast to coast, which is amazing, country to country. I'd like to think that a lot of us are benefiting from, that aspect of going through this very difficult time. And we definitely encourage everyone to check out Save Next Summer. Kelly?
Awesome. I have that song in my head. Is it like Sade, like coast to coast, LA to Chicago? We could have that playing in the background, Howie.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I got derailed.
Sorry, we went from pinto beans to Sade. Amazing. Like, this is like the best show.
Diverse. We're diverse. Love the book, Howie. I haven't read that one and I can't wait. That quote is so good. All right. So if we have individuals that would like to get a hold of our guests or us after the show, Soy, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, they can check out the website at savenextsummer.com. If they would like to see the camp that I direct, that's goldarrowcamp.com. And you can send me an email, staff, STAFF, at goldarrowcamp.com.
Okay. Mike, what about you?
Real simple. My camp, valleytrails.com. Go ahead and check that out. And then even simpler, Mike at valleytrails.com. So why make it hard?
I like it. Howie, how about you?
You can find my camps at camprobinhood.ca or campwalden.ca, which is my overnight camp. And if you'd like to get a hold of me, I invite you to connect. It's Howie at camprobinhood.ca.
All right. And my email is Kelly with a Y at hiddenpinesranch.com. Please do not forget that you can find all of our show notes at gocamp.pro/COP. You can find the resources that we mentioned in this episode and lots of good stuff there from our show and other Go Camp Pro podcasts out there. We hope you enjoyed this. Mike and Soy, thank you so much. Howie, always a pleasure. And thank you everyone for listening.